morning, English 10 people. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I know that I personally did. I have been appreciating and loving the outdoors lately because it's been so nice out and I've been able to go on my walks and it's just been really good out. I am of course keeping my social distancing and avoiding public places. I try to take the paths that are like very isolated and just don't have very many people walking on them or running on them. So I haven't actually been interacting with very many people, which I hope you have also not been interacting with very many people. So on today's stream, we are going to be taking a look at this week's material. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my screens over so that way we can start with that. Click on some things, boom. So I have my week 2 stuff pulled up right here. And as you can see, there are a couple new docs in here. Now, first thing is there is an English 10 student calendar now. So this student calendar is for you mostly, so you know what is coming up in the near future. In general, this is always I'm going to be posting this up with every single class or every single week, just so that way people can be keeping up with things and you know what is coming up in the future as well. There are some things that are still TBA, like for example, week 4, we haven't quite worked out the assignment for that yet because we're straying a little bit from some of the canned curriculum. And also the week 8, when we have like kind of our final for the class. But otherwise, everything else is in here. We also put the rough time estimates for how long that this stuff is going to take you. So that way you could appropriately like plan that out for yourself. So again, this calendar will be posted up for you every single week. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Oh, actually, I want to talk about the optional honors stuff first. So before we go into the lesson, I want to talk about honors. So here's the first thing, honors information, which I have attached to the doc for this. Now, this is basically the same thing across all English 10 classes because we just agreed that we want to have a kind of robust what honors should be for the classes. So this is what the honors is. I do want to note up here that once you've read through the information and feel like you have a good understanding, please write "I'm in the submission box if you're interested in being part of the honors online. Again, this is so I as a teacher can keep track of who is doing honors and who is not doing honors, so that way I can remember like, oh, I have to grade this person's honors stuff. Now, so honors for online is going to work a little bit differently than in class, because if you remember in class, we were doing a lot of honors work together as a class, and unfortunately, we can't do that because we're not together as a class anymore, which I'm really bummed out about because I had some really cool like honors projects ideas that I just don't get to do anymore. Sad face. But we're going to figure out our way through and everything will be fine. So the rationale behind this honor. So the journal is an instrumental tool for helping someone to develop the ability to critically examine surroundings from multiple perspectives and to make informed judgments about what is seen and heard. Oftentimes, writing or drawing in a journal helps to process ideas, formulate questions, and retain information. Journals can provide a safe, accessible space to share thought. Oh, that's a typo right there. Feelings and uncertainties. So because we live in an unprecedented time from a global pandemic, it is fitting to use journaling to process, track, and record for prosperity the things that are in your life right now. For the rest of the school year, the honors project for English 10 will be to keep a journal. And right down here, I have broken that down into a couple steps for you to follow. So step number 1 is to choose a topic. So option number 1 when it comes to choosing a topic is to choose one of the topics below. I've got a big list of potential topics down here. And write about that each week. So for example, I might choose to find an article about fear each week and write a reflection about that. So that could be an option for you. Option 2 is each week choose a different topic from the list below. So you just kind of look at this list and like, okay, this week I'm going to do this one. This week I'm going to do this one. There are about 6 or 7 weeks left. So in total, you'll be choosing 6 to 7 topics if you choose that one. Or option 3, choose your own adventure. As long as your journal topics are still around the idea of fear, you can write about really anything that you want. Really, the idea is just that you're documenting and journaling about fear itself, or about this situation and how that might relate to fear. And so for choose your own adventure, you can make your own topics. You can do a mix of option 1 and option 2. Like, it'll really be up to you. So again, these are your different options that you get to choose from. Now, when you're writing, each journal should be at least 200 words. This isn't... I'm just going to straight up say, this isn't a very, like, excessive amount of writing that we're asking you to do as English 10 teachers. There's no maximum limit, so write to your heart's content. If you want to write me a short story for this, awesome, I will read your short story. If you want to write me a 500-word poem, awesome, I will read your poetry. Like, I will really read anything that you write, and I will give you feedback on anything that you write. Remember that rules still apply to this, so I still want to see proper grammar, proper mechanics for this. Please do not write this like you would a text message. I still want to see this as, like, showing your English ability. And it is English honors, so we would expect, like, you know, decent grammar and mechanics. And something just to help me as the teacher is at the top of your journal, please just write down your topic or, like, what the prompt is. Like, this can just kind of be, like, your title for it type of thing. And again, that's just going to help me so that way I know exactly what you're writing about. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, like, this entire list of potential topics because, you know, you can kind of choose what you want to do or what you want to write about. And once you have written that, there is a spot for you to submit it down here. So it is in journal format, so you would just write directly on here. And I believe it does save your responses, so that means that if you don't finish it all in one sitting, that's okay. You can still come back to it and finish it later. If you have any questions about honors, make sure that you email me at some point, and we can definitely walk through honors, and I can definitely help you out with that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's lesson 3.02, the reality of fear. Ooh, okay, we're starting with an activity. So it says, what do people fear the most? Play the slideshow to learn the most common fears that plague people. Ooh, rats. Okay. Failure. Oh, that's a big fear that I have personally. Water. Oh, I guess, like, you know, like deep water, the ocean and stuff. The dark. Definitely a very popular fear. Dogs. Who would fear dogs? I love dogs. I mean, I know that's a real fear, but, like, I love dogs. Death. Ooh, that's a very... Yes, that is a big fear people have. 13. That's actually like a cultural one, because in some cultures the number 13 isn't actually an unlucky number, so that really depends on the culture. Public speaking. Oh, that one ranks like literally like number 1 in a lot of people's fears. Clowns. I'm like kind of afraid of clowns, but I don't know, not a ton. Needles. I have never really been that afraid of needles. Like, getting shots is not a problem for me. The unknown. That is a fear for me. The unknown terrifies me sometimes. Snakes. I'm not that afraid of snakes. I think I'm afraid if there was like 200 snakes just like crawling towards me. That would be scary, but like I'm not afraid of like a single snake. Flying. I'm not afraid of flying, I don't think. Heights. I go back and forth with heights. Like, sometimes I'm afraid of heights, sometimes I'm not. Spiders. I'm not like that afraid of spiders. Cool. So the objectives of this lesson is to employ reading strategies specific to nonfiction selections, identify and use features unique to nonfiction texts, and organize the information in a meaningful way. Ooh. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So it says, for some, fear is a daily obstacle, something that prevents them from doing certain activities. For others, it is a thrilling feeling, one that they seek in roller coasters, haunted houses, and scary movies. People have different fears, ranging from 8-legged creatures and furry rodents to flying and falling. Fear is a response to a perceived threat, a threat that appears to be real but may or may not be. One of the best ways to conquer fear is to learn how it affects the body and mind. Interesting. So reading nonfiction, a plethora, and that word means an overabundance or having a lot of. So a plethora of books and articles have been written on the topic of overcoming fear because, according to National Institute of Mental Health, approximately 1 in 6 adults over the age of 18 suffer from panic disorders brought on by attacks of fear. Am I able to zoom into this? No, I can't. So while there are many works of fiction that invoke fear in readers, works of nonfiction usually aspire to assist readers in overcoming their fears. We read nonfiction when we read textbooks, newspapers, most magazines, manuals, and some books. When we read nonfiction, we use many of the same reading skills that we employ when we read a work of fiction. Oops. Oh, I just kind of like lost my space for a minute. Okay. So we do all of the following: preview the text, ask questions, make summaries as we read, make personal connections between what we read and what we experience in life. Nonfiction texts often have unique features that can help us as readers. So I'm guessing that these are going to be the strategies that they have us practicing when we are in this lesson this week. Nonfiction features. Many nonfiction works maintain features that help readers to be efficient and focus on their reading. Table of contents, glossary, index, example page. Are they going to define these for us? Oh, yes, they do. So a glossary is an alphabetically list key terms and their definitions located after the text in the back of the book. So if you look at the back of most textbooks, there's going to be a glossary that defines all of the vocabulary words. Some of you may have used this in the past to like make flashcards or make note cards for yourself. Example page. So let's see, this may include a title, subheading, text, photos, tables, captions, and text boxes to assist the reader. What? I don't really know if that defines example page, but okay, sure. Index. List key names, terms, topics alphabetically with the page numbers located after the text. So some of you may have also used an index in the past. So take, for example, if you're in like a history class and you know that you have a test coming up on the World War II. And so you just want to find everything in that textbook about World War II, but it might be in several different parts of the book. So if you actually go to the index of the book, and if you look up the term World War II in the index, it'll tell you every single page that World War II shows up on, so you know exactly what page to turn to. It's pretty handy. Lastly, a table of contents. So it lists the major parts of a text with corresponding page numbers located within the first pages of the text. I think table of contents, that's something you learn how to use at a very young age, so I don't think I need to define that too much. What's coming up next? So, glossary. Readers can use the glossary to discover a word's meaning and pronunciation, not punctuation. So this is an example. This looks like an example of a glossary right here. So you might see something like this in the back of a textbook. It just has the vocabulary word and then the definition of that word. An index. So readers can use the index to find page numbers of the specific information they want to locate. So again, just like my example before, if you want to find stuff specifically about like the moon, for example, then you know that you have to go to page 2 for that. So indexes are super helpful in that way. Table of contents. Readers can use the table of contents to locate information and to see how topics are organized. So again, this will just tell you where things are in the book. Fox speed data, a research study. The quick brown fox was much faster than the lazy dog, who was faster than the sloth. This is the fox. So these are all examples of different types of things that you might see in a textbook or in nonfiction text to help you understand the context, the content. Like, for example, they talk about a fox and then they gave you a picture of a fox. So it could be very helpful for you when you're reading. Is that it? Yes, that is it. So next page. Dang, we're kind of cooking through this lesson. Ooh, reading Revelation. So in addition to the text features you may see on the page of a nonfiction work, we can also use graphic organizers to help us effectively read nonfiction. We were actually going to do a lot of these graphic organizer things in real class, so I'm happy that the online class is having us do some of that again. So as you read any text, you automatically answer the questions: who is doing what? When are they doing it? Why is this important? Nonfiction text will include lots of information that you don't want to miss. Think about ways that you can organize important information during and after reading nonfiction. So notice that up here, kind of like some of the main questions that you should be kind of asking yourself while you're reading is like the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. Like all your WH questions basically. And sometimes how. Don't forget the how. And look, there's all of our questions right there. What, who, why, when, how, where. These are all the kinds of questions that you should be trying to answer for yourself as you're reading a text, because that helps you to be more of an active reader versus just being a passive reader. Ooh, there's more pages to this. Okay. So how does this connect to my life? What do I know about this already? What am I learning? Again, more examples of questions that you could be asking yourself while you are reading a text. And this last one, ooh, look, this is an example of like a note sheet that you could create for yourself. Information I already use, things I can use in the future, things I learned, things I want to know more about. I know it always seems like a lot of work to like create a notes sheet for yourself or whatever, but like I can honestly tell you that in college, when I started to actually like take notes this way, like I started to actually, you know, use graphic organizers and use notes, like my comprehension of things went up significantly. Like I could walk out of a lecture and I just understood so much more because I was taking notes in a very structured way versus just trying to write down everything that the professor was saying. So when the topic is fear, nonfiction often informs us to understand what characters experience in the stories we read and watch on television and film. Authors count on us to understand this very real part of shared human experience. Alrighty. Next page. Oh, we're almost done with this lesson, y'all. So as you read Facing Our Fears, apply the during and after nonfiction reading strategies you've learned. You will be responsible for answering questions about the article and the reading strategies you use during the discussion-based assessment with your instructor. Yeah, we're not actually doing that. We're not doing a discussion-based assessment because basically what that would mean is like I would have to like call each of you individually and then do the discussion-based assessment. So with your instructor at the end of the module, be sure you write your answers to the flashcard questions in your notebook. 1 or 2 well-developed sentences for each answer will help you review for your DBA. What happens if okay, so this is the text. Oh, okay. So I have to create my notes for this then. Well, does this notes thing work? No. I guess I create a doc then. Hold on a second as I create and open up a doc. Alright, I have to make this in my English 10 folder so that way I remember where it is. Alright, so I got my doc now. I'm just gonna title my doc what is the, I have to check again. Facing Our Fears notes. So because this is in the structure of like some boxes, I think I want to keep that structure for myself as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert a table, and I am just going to do this. Oops, I did too many. I need to delete half of those. Delete rows. So again, oops. Okay, so the first one is what text feature signals this is a nonfiction text? And second thing, what is the topic of the article? What does the author want you to think, feel, or do with the information in the article? What proof supports the author's claim or argument? What purpose does the story about Army Row serve? What is the most memorable line in the article? Cool. So I got all my questions down. I'm also just going to change the color of these boxes so that way I know that these are... So you see right there, I just made myself a graphic organizer, like super fast, super easy. I mean, it's not like you'd be surprised how helpful graphic organizers can be and also how fast you can do a graphic organizer. So these are the questions that this assignment wants me to take notes on throughout it. So let's go ahead and read. Facing our fears. Boo! Scientists strike back at fear, finding ways to help us cope with anxiety. This is from the Washington Associated Press. Science is getting a grip on people's fears. So the fact that this is from the Associated Press of Washington, and also they're talking about science, those are kind of things that make me think that this is a nonfiction article right away. It also talks about a lot of science, and science, again, is a nonfiction. What is the topic of the article? Looks like it's about finding ways to cope with anxiety. So, as Americans revel in all things scary on Halloween, scientists say they now know better what's going on inside our brains when a spook jumps out and scares us. Knowing how fear rules the brain should lead to treatments for a major medical problem when irrational fear goes haywire. We're making a lot of progress, said University of Michigan psychology professor Stephen Marin. We're taking all of what we learned from the basic studies of animals and bringing that into the clinical practice that helps people. Things are starting to come together in a very important way. About 40 million Americans suffer from anxiety disorders, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. A Harvard Medical School study estimated that the annual cost of the U.S. economy in 1999 at roughly $42 billion. Wow. So because it's using a lot of this like statistics and information, that also makes me think that this is a nonfiction story or a nonfiction article. So one of the most basic emotions, fear is a basic primal emotion that is key to evolutionary survival. It's one we share with animals. Genetics plays a big role in the development of overwhelming and needless fear, psychologists say, but so do traumatic events. Fear is a funny thing, said Ted Abel, a fear researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. One needs enough of it, but not too much of it. Army Rowe, a Connecticut freelance writer and mother, said she used to be one of those rational types who are usually calm under pressure. She was also someone who could downhill ski the treacherous Black Diamond trails of snowy mountains. Then one day, in the midst of coping with a couple of serious illnesses in the family, she felt fear closing in on her while driving alone. The crushing pain on her chest felt like a heart attack. She called 911. I was literally frozen with fear, she said. It was an anxiety attack, the first of many. The first sign she would get would be sweaty palms and then a numbness in the pit of the stomach and queasiness. Eventually it escalated until she felt as if she was being attacked by a wild animal. So, I mean, I'm sure some of you who have had like panic attacks and anxiety attacks before, I'm sure you can kind of like relate to this right here. And so like, this story of Army Row, that is one of the questions that we have, or like, what purpose does the story about Army Row serve? And, you know, from looking at this, it's explaining that, like, Army Row was... It seemed like she didn't have a ton of fears up until this point. But then suddenly she did start to have panic attacks, so I guess, like... So I guess, like, fear and anxiety can affect anybody, not just people who seem like they're constantly anxious. I'm also starting to see, like, some of the purpose of what the author wants us to think, feel, or do with the information. Alright, so it's not all in the mind. So there's a trick to panic attack, said David Carbonell, a Chicago psychologist specializing in treating anxiety disorders. You're experiencing this powerful discomfort, but you're getting tricked into treating it like danger. These days, thanks to counseling, self-study, calming exercises, and introspection, Rowe knows how to stop or at least minimize those attacks early on. So scientists figure they can improve fear dampening process by learning how fear runs through the brain and body. The fear hotspot is the amygdala, an almond-shaped part of the deep brain. So, you know, I'm starting to get the feeling that one of the things that the author of this article is trying to get across is that people can learn to control their fears and anxieties through meaningful coping skills and practice. So some of the proof that I am starting to notice is, like, they're going into the, like, first of all, they use Army Row. So that's one of the way that the author uses, like, supports their claims. They're breaking down, they go through the science of fear. So the fear hotspot is the amygdala, an almond-shaped part of the brain. The amygdala isn't responsible for all people's fear response, but it's like the burglar alarm that connects to everything else, said the New York University psychology and neuroscience professor Elizabeth Phelps. Emory University psychiatry and psychology professor Michael Davis found that a certain chemical reaction in the amygdala is crucial in the way mice and people learn to overcome fear. When that reaction is deactivated in mice, they never learn to counter their fears. Scientists found D-cycloserine, a drug already used to fight hard to treat tuberculosis, strengthening that good chemical reaction in mice. Working in combination with therapy, it seems to do the same in people. It was first shown effective with people who have a fear of heights. It also worked in tests and other types of fear, and it's now being studied in the survivors of the World Trade Center attacks on the Iraq War. So the author is, like, referencing professionals such as scientists. And they're also referencing, like, research studies. I guess I should be a little more specific with that. Because, like, this research study is the, like, cycloserine. So the work is promising, but Michigan's Marin cautions that therapy will still be needed. You're not going to be able to take a pill and make things go away. When it comes to ruling the brain, fear often is king, scientists say. Fear is the most powerful emotion, said University of California, Los Angeles psychology professor Michael Fanslow. People recognize fear in other humans faster than other emotions, according to a new study being published next month. Research appearing in the journal Emotion involved volunteers who were bombarded with pictures of faces showing fear, happiness, and no expression. They quickly recognized and reacted to the faces of fear, even when it was turned upside down. Ooh, that's kind of surprising, actually. I want to put that as a memorable part. That's very memorable for me. So fear leads us to the sense of sight and hearing being instantly aroused. The eyes and mouth are widely open and the eyebrows raised. The frightened person at first stands like a statue, motionless and breathless, or crouches down as if instinctively to escape observation. The heart beats quickly and violently, so that it palpates or knocks against the ribs. That the skin is much affected under the sense of great fear, we see in the marvelous manner in which perspiration immediately exudes from it. The hairs also on the skin stand erect, and the superficial muscles shiver. In connection with the disturbed action of the heart, the breathing is hurried, the salivary glands act imperfectly, the mouth becomes dry and is often open and shut. Wow, that was a lot of description of like what fear looks like. So Terror by Dr. Guillaume Duchenne from the Charles Darwin, The Expression of Fear and Emotion in Man and Animals, 1872. We think we have some built-in shortcut of the brain that serves the role that helps detect anything that could be threatening, said study author, Vanderbilt University psychology professor David Zold. Other studies have shown that just by being very afraid, other bodily functions change. One study found that very frightened people can withstand more pain than those not experiencing fear. Another found that experiencing fear, or merely perceiving it in others, improved people's attention and brain skills. So strategies for coping. To help overcome overwhelming fear, psychologist Carbonell, author of the Panic Attacks Workbook, has his patients distinguish between a real threat and merely a perceived one. They practice fear attacks and their response to them. He even has them fill out questionnaires in the middle of fear attack which changes their thinking and reduces their anxiety. That's important because the normal response for dealing with a real threat is either flee or fight, Carbonell said. But if the threat is not real, the best way to deal with fear is just the opposite. Wait it out and chill. Huh. Alright. I'm trying to think of what other information I might want to put in here. I mean, most of my notes are pretty general. I think if I were taking a class, like a psychology class, I would probably take, I would probably take deeper notes than just this. But again, we're mostly reading this article as like an example of like practicing our note taking. Cool. So I took my notes. What happens next? Do we not come back to that? Alright, so the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. H.P. Lovecraft, ooh, very good author. And writes a lot of like horror books actually. So in this lesson we learned that while fiction might evoke fear, most nonfiction works dedicated to the subject are focused on helping people overcome their fears. We learned about the main features of nonfiction text, and we practiced using during and after reading strategies that support us as we read nonfiction works, whether they are biographies, newspapers, manuals, or self-help books. Wait, did we actually practice during? Wait. When did we practice an after reading strategy? I feel like we only practiced a during reading strategy. Okay, whatever. Assessment instructions. So check your understanding of the nonfiction reading strategies by completing the self-check below and submitting a brief reflection. This is an important exercise that you will use in future lessons, the discussion-based assessment and the segment exam. So using the table of contents of No More Fear, in which chapter would a reader find the information on breathing exercises? Breathing exercises, well, looks like it is in the Just Say No to Fear. Ooh. Yes, I know how to use the table of contents. Good for me. Where should a reader look to learn the definition of the amygdala? Now, remember, if you just want the definition, we're going to have to go to the glossary for that, because that's going to give us the vocab word for that. Next. So, which part of the text should a reader consult to find the page number that contains information on the location and role of the amygdala? That would be the index, because remember, index gives you the page number. Next. So what would be the best way to communicate the following information, the most common fears? So I've got all this information right here. Anytime that you have like a bunch of numbers and you want to compare a bunch of like different numbers or quantities, I would say that the best way is probably to show that in a chart form. This one says, on what page can a reader find information about the fight or flight response? First, he or she will need to decide what part of the text should best help him or her to locate this information. So the fight or flight response. No, why are you doing this? Oh, okay. Let's see, so we're trying to look for the fight or flight response. You know, when I'm taking a look, oh, it says right here, down here, fight or flight in the index, 7 and 10. So, I guess page 7 and 10, because, I mean, it's right in the index. Coolio. So down here, it's giving us some instructions about the assessment. So review the article Facing Our Fears, open a document and make 3 columns. Label the first column, what I already knew, the second column, what I want to learn more about, and in the third column, what I learned. Respond to the article by completing the chart. This strategy allows you to self-evaluate the work you've done. Cool. So yeah. The way that you can make this is pretty simple. So if I go over here, I'm just going to go to a new page right here. You can actually just do this by doing a table. So like if I just had a table, what are the things that I need to put on there? What I already knew. What I want to learn more about. And what I learned. Oops. And if I take this and I just change the color right there. So yeah, so you'll just go through the article one more time and you'll just fill out your chart now for this stuff. And yeah, and that's like I guess it's your assessment for the week. There's just a turn-in spot for right here, so you will just upload it into the Dropbox. Make sure that when you're uploading it to the Dropbox that you also share it with me as well, and I'm going to add that into the notes. No, it's read only, I can't change it! No! Well, I guess I can add activity instructions. Where did my instructions go? Alright. cool. Awesome sauce. I think we made it to the end of the lesson, y'all. Well, there's like 20 minutes left of office hours, but that's okay. If you are watching this after the fact, or if you are watching this live, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. Remember that if you have any questions, make sure that you send me an email about that at some point. I'm actually going to send out an email. Oh, my hair looks kind of weird. Why didn't anyone tell me that my hair looked weird? I am actually going to send out... Oh, I'm actually going to send out an email in like literally like 5 minutes that just kind of tells you about some of the instructions of like how to post things up onto Buzz, because it's like a little bit weird because you have to post it on Buzz, but you also have to share it with me at the same time. Or if you put it into your English 10 folder, because technically you already have an English 10 folder that is shared with me. So if you just put all of your documents in there, then they will automatically be shared with me, and you don't have to share every single individual document with me. Remember, if you have any questions, please do reach out to me. I know I just keep saying that, but like, just do it. Or if you just want to say hi, like, you can say hi too. Like, nothing wrong with that, y'all. Okay. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And again, thank you all. I hope you are all doing well. And make sure, don't touch your face. Wash your hands. Bye, y'all.